Think I'm on. Hi, everybody. This is Gabre. I'm a marriage and family therapist and one of the therapists with Angela Psychology Group, and going to have a conversation with Magic Collins in a moment. Just waiting for him to join the conversation, and we'll get started. Hello, everybody joining in. This is awesome. Right. I think connecting. Yes, there he is. Hello, sir.
What's up, man? How you
What's up,
doing?
Magic Man? I'm good. How are you?
Good, good, good. Trying to get all situated.
Yeah,
Yeah,
same
man.
here. Same
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah. So
Th-
can you reintroduce yourself? Because I got some
yes, for your
friends.
audience. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, my name is Gabriel Milner. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm one of the therapists with Angelus Psychology Group. And one of the major things that we've gotten started is a Black men's healing group. So we've been doing group therapy for the last few weeks with Black men. But I see individuals, couples, all the whole gamut.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
You want to introduce yourself
Yeah,
to
yeah,
our
yeah.
audience?
So I'm Magic Collins, content creator, comedian, mental health advocate, and also a peer group facilitator at NAMI West LA.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have this conversation with you because you just have a great story and how you came to kind of advocate for mental health for yourself and your life, and then your desire to spread that word. Um, and also, your TikToks and your content is pretty funny too. So I thought we'd entertain the people a little bit too.
Gotta entertain, man. Gotta
That's
entertain.
right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So, yeah, maybe we could just start with that, with your story, what your mental health journey was, and how you got to the point where you wanted to be an advocate for it.
Oh man. Well, it started where I guess I'm trying not to go too far back, but in South Central, all the stuff you get exposed to early. So I think like with kids, you want to give them safe. You want to have them feel safe.
Hmm.
So for me, that was never a thing. So it was always like defend yourself. It's kind of like that kid from Fresh, if he grew up as a
Didn't go
37-year-old
to.
man.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was that kind of experience. And then moving to the Bay, being kind of shell shocked and really quiet and to myself and not really talking much, and not knowing what those terms are, like not knowing that that wasn't just a normal thing, just feeling weird and not knowing how to express that. And then not until I got to college where I started being kind of nurtured. My mind was finally like nurtured, and I started getting into theater. I was realizing like, oh shoot, this is just a shell. Like I can be way more than this quiet mute dude that just hangs to the side and just like in the back, just like, yeah, yeah, man,
Hmm.
that's cool. Word. Like I would just say like I was this Mr. Phrases where I'd
Right.
be at, I'd be like at a party, I'd just be like, yeah, man, that's cool. And that was it. That's it. It was like, well, that's it for Magic tonight. It was like that was I was that guy. So
Hmm.
it wasn't until theater where I started actually being able to talk and really kind of learning like, oh, there's way more to my personality than just that, quiet guy.
Yeah.
Um, and then when I got to LA, like it was more of the workhorse. Like I'm used to most all my family like Tyson meat packing or working as a mover, and it's like the men in my family are very very quiet. Like we just work,
Hmm.
um, and that's where I realized like I was kind of following those footsteps, working at Trader Joe's, breaking down pallets every day, and like that was my way of kind of dealing with my own issues. And I think you kind of miss things when you look at somebody that works hard, you kind of automatically kind of identify them or project on them that they're doing well. And I
Hmm.
think there's a misconception where it's like just because you see somebody working hard doesn't mean they're doing well. It might
Hmm.
be a way they're coping with their own mental challenges, mental health challenges. So for me, it was like I remember I started running the ground when I got into stand up, and I had taken I was like maybe 13 or 14 years into acting classes and just dumping money into a barrel and giving
Hmm.
it to all these acting teachers. And then I realized, like, I was like, oh shit, like it's not about the next class. It's not about
Mm-hmm.
the next photo shoot. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
about my mind. Like that's what's holding me back. Like there's so many unresolved issues that's really stopping me from getting off the ground. And that's when I kind of start reshuffling the deck. Like I need to focus more on my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, like I started, I remember maybe my third year in the stand up, I just started wilding out. I was like, I went to just doing nothing, like work, go home, watch ESPN, drink
Mm-hmm.
beer, and then I could feel that just my first, I'll say that was my first manic episode where I was just like, I'm finna wild out, I'm finna
Mm-hmm.
finna hit these streets, man, what's popping? And then and it didn't last long because I'm still an introvert. I like being at home, but
Mm-hmm.
I still had that period where I was just going hard. And then and stand up was kind of conducive to that because you're out every night. And I was hosting open mic every Monday, so it was like I was out there. Um, and I remember I was like, I need therapy. And I also put myself in like some shitty situations
Mm-hmm.
where I remember the one of the most funny moments where I was trying to force this guy to recycle his bottle. It
Uh-huh.
was like it was like lunchtime. I was at Trader Joe's, and I remember he threw a bottle outside of empty, dirty Monte Carlo, and I walked over and I picked it up, and I was like, "Hey man, I think you dropped this bottle." I leaned in the car and I gave it back, and he was so shocked. He was like, what the fuck, man?" And it was him and his girlfriend, and I could get the vibe that they had just finished whatever drug binge they were on. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
this is I just bit off more than I could
This
chew.
is not the time to do
But yeah,
this,
yeah,
right?
what am I
Yeah.
doing? Stop, man, stop. And I hand him the bottle and I walk off, and then I hear the bottle hit the ground, and I was like, you need to keep walking. And then my ego was like, no, we going back. And then, so I march back, pick up the bottle, and I give it back to him. At this point, I was like, what the fuck is he doing? And I was like, I don't know, man. Just take the bottle in my
Mm-hmm.
head. And he takes the bottle, he chucks it out the car. I go to the bottle and I chuck it back in the car. And I was like, I just did too much. Like this is way too much. So so he gets out of the car and he takes his shirt off, and he was like, "What the fuck, man? What you doing, dog?" And he started showing me his tattoos and his gang
Mm-hmm.
affiliations, and I was like, "Ah, man." Um, and then and I'm just standing there, and then he takes out a knife and he starts to charge me,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, why did I do this? Like, why did I get myself into this? Um, but he stops and he was like, so what you gonna do now? And I was like, dude, you got the knife, man. Like you leading this dance.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and luckily his girl pushes me and she pushes him and she was like, we gotta go. And then when they leave, I was like, it's time for therapy.
Mm-hmm.
It's time to get some help. Like this is too much.
That
So
was that was the lightning bolt.
yeah, it was like all those combinations of things. I was like, let me get some help. So after that,
Mm-hmm.
I would start going to therapy, start really talking about my issues and what kind of led me to my behavior of so I think we think of bravery, it's like I wasn't brave facing off that dude. It's like I was
Mm-hmm.
coming from a place of depression, like not
Mm-hmm.
liking the life I lived. So it was easy to face this guy and confront him because I didn't like my life at the time.
I'm gonna take control of
Um,
this moment
yeah, exactly.
and
This
show him.
moment, I'm
Yeah.
gonna do something. It's like for
Mm-hmm.
5 cents on an empty water bottle,
Right.
I'm gonna claim something. It's like so that kind of led me to getting therapy, and then I kind of once that happened, I really started unpacking things I had never even had words for, and like reanalyzing the man in my life who I grew up around
Mm-hmm.
in that hyper reality of South Central LA, and also how my just how my personality would just kind of go out the window in certain social situations. And then those were things that would always kind of haunt me where I would leave a social situation. I was like, where was my personality at? Like, where was
Mm-hmm.
my intellect? But I didn't have words for it. It just, with things were just, it would just happen. It allowed me, like, I was in therapy about 6 years, and I kept kind of digging, because what people don't know, there's like 50 different types of therapy. So it's like, so once
Yeah.
I started getting into that world, I kept exploring that. Um, and then like I experimented with EMDR. I took CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, at the Actors Foundation, and I just started really just exploring. Um, and I think it was. I remember I kind of made I remember I kind of made the mistake of thinking like, oh, I got it all figured out. All right, I'm gonna do, and I produce comedy shows, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna combine comedy with mental health, and and it
I'm
was like,
ready.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was like, I don't know shit about business, so what am I doing? So like it was a kind of a comedy of errors, like last year, of trying to put all the stuff I've learned about mental health, and partner up with nonprofits, and trying to get a business, and a bad dating experience. It was like all these things, and then feeling like I needed to, like, climb the social ladder of stand-up
Hmm.
comedy in 1 year. And it was like I put too much on to 1 year, and the wheels fell off.
Hmm.
So it was like, so that actually led to, oh, you got to start from not scratch, but where you thought you were, you weren't.
Right.
And you got to humble yourself in that way, where it took me a long time to. It was actually the first time I was ever told by my friend to stop.
Mm.
Like, I've never been told this, because I've always been the person divvying out advice, telling people, hey, how to get people unstuck using my experiences. But it was the only time where somebody else had to pick me up off the mat, and I couldn't get up. Like, and that was scary, because like those, in the 3 months leading to, I ended up checking myself into a mental health institution, and the 3 months leading up to that, like, it was the first time where I couldn't create. I couldn't write. I couldn't. I could barely read,
Mm.
and I just started hiding it. Like, I couldn't. I was just pretending. Like, I was trying to go to the mics and pretending like I could remember my material, um, and the embarrassment of that, it just heightened the situation.
Hmm.
Uh,
So you had to accept that moment that
yeah,
this is
yeah,
not the time for me to
yeah.
be out there and
I
I need
was,
to hibernate.
exactly. I was literally driving till the wheels fell off,
Hmm.
like, mentally, uh, and even that hit a head, where I remember, uh, there's a few incidents where my mother, who's never said this to me, like, we were in the car, and she looked at me, and she was like, "Where's my son at?" And like,
Mm.
that crushed me, because I've always been the go-to, and she's always looked at me with that kind of symbol of strength, and to be reduced to that place where she didn't recognize me, terrified me, because I saw it in her face. She didn't see her son,
Right.
and that hurt me. Um, and 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 then to have I feel like there's also that. Speaking of my friend, there's
He's the one that told you stop.
ah,
Hey. That's,
he's the
we had a reenactment
yeah,
just
yeah,
there.
that was it. He's the one that told me
Stop.
to stop, like,
Right.
because I was running around with my hair on fire,
Hmm.
and that's where it's like, I feel like with mental health, it's so important to not, like, manipulate or bait your friends. If you feel like they're off, it's like, it's talk to them,
Hmm.
show
Be
them love,
direct. Yeah.
redirect, like, give them resources. It's like, it's not an opportunity. It's not a time to be an opportunist, and
Hmm.
and they're kind of like, oh, I'm gonna see where this can go if I poke them enough. It's like,
Hmm.
you're doing a disservice to your friend if you do that. So it's like, to have that one friend that actually told me to stop was everything I needed. And then,
Right.
get off social media, um, stop feeling pressure to call everybody and text everybody, and show up to hospitals. It's like, just stop, man. And that's what I needed to hear. And nobody else would tell me that. And it was like, and it got to a point, like my situation with my mom, my friend telling me to stop. And at one point, I was so amped up where I was gonna go to a bar and fight everybody, because I thought they
Mm.
were the ones, like, exacerbating the situation. And it's like, and my roommates had to stop me from doing that. And that's where was like, okay, it's time to check myself into to an institution. Like it was kind of like the you okay, dude, love
It's
that
a lot of
man.
love in the house. A
That,
lot of
that's
love.
that's one of my brothers, man. Uh,
Yeah.
but
That's when you find out who the people
exactly,
are,
exactly,
who the real
exactly,
supporters in your life are.
yeah, yeah. And so to come out of that, it was a process.
Hmm.
When I came out of mental health institution, I didn't even know if I could do stand up anymore. Um, and at that point, like I couldn't, my cognitive ability was gone. Like I still couldn't read. I really read. I still couldn't write. I could. I managed to read a book like very, at a snail's pace while I was in there. Um, but to really get my cognitive ability back, like I had to do these brain apps, and I
Hmm.
did that for like the first month I was out. It was one app was called like Peak, and I would just
Hmm.
keep doing that app day in day out, trying to just get it fired back up. Um, and I remember when I felt like I should get back into stand up, and I had a psychiatrist at that time, and he was like I think it's time to get a job. Like he was just old school
It's like
psychiatrist, and he was like,
let's move forward now.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He was like, just go and get to work, man. It's just super old school psychiatrist, man. And he was like, and I was just like silly putty, like sitting in his office babbling, and
Hmm.
he was like, all right, let's try this, let's try that. And at the time, I tried mood stabilizers, and I hated them
Hmm.
in the past, like because they made me like a zombie, and I couldn't really
Hmm.
talk to people. I remember taking this finance class, and people would just talk to me, and I wasn't. I was just like,
Yeah.
and so I was hesitant, but fortunately, when I tried at that time, it it changed everything.
Mm.
Like it was like, oh, okay. Like now I'm feeling like I can maintain without getting too up or too down, um, and that kind of allowed me. And it allowed me to just kind of keep buying time to get back on my feet.
Hmm.
Like I got a job working on a food truck, slinging cupcakes and stuff to the kids, and so it's
Hmm.
like that was nice too because I got to see kids every day
Hmm.
and kind of get to that playful place, and really just ground myself in the food truck. There's so much work and there's so many little things, and I was driving it too. I crashed one of the food trucks.
You are an open person. You gotta let us all.
Bop! Bop, bop.
Oh man.
Oh man, I ran that thing right to a cement slab, man. Oh,
It
yeah, yeah.
was too
So
tall.
it
Like
was too
that.
tall, man.
Uh,
I hit I made a turn in the slab. I didn't see it, and it just
oh,
bam. I was like,
oh
oh,
man.
hope this is insured, man.
Right.
It is. But
So I mean, your story, it's this constant cycle of
mm,
finding something that suits you, and
mm,
then comes to a point where it doesn't suit you anymore. So as a kid, being quiet suited
mm,
you, and
mm,
then you found theater, and it was like, no, this is getting me in touch with something I've been putting away. But then that
mm,
wasn't it, and you kept trying to feed it, but that wasn't
yeah.
the thing that you needed at that point. You
Mm,
needed to move beyond it, and then it was comedy, and
mm,
that was feeding you, and that was doing it. But then it was kind of feeding the dark side too. It was kind of
mm, mm-hmm.
overwhelming. It was like over revving that engine,
Yeah,
and you
exactly.
needed to find
Yeah.
something else to support you. And so
Mm,
you had to step it up to therapy, and from there, medication. Along with the therapy and finding the right therapy. That was really important that you brought up. There's cognitive behavioral therapy where you're really paying attention to your thoughts and kind of reformulating how your thought process works, or EMDR, which is really connecting to your trauma and
mm,
focusing on that. And there's so many different ways to approach getting support. So
yeah.
it's that constant search is what we all should be on, no matter
Yeah.
how big or small the issues are.
And that's what I feel like, even in this time, is like how you talk to yourself is so important. Because when you're, I feel like the most dangerous place to be is in your room by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's why we use isolation as a form of punishment. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, because your mind is that powerful, where it's like, you know what, I'm just gonna leave you by yourself. You're gonna do all the work for me. It's like that's what um, we we've come to. It's like it's hard to stay in the heart. Like it's hard. I don't want to get mushy, but it's like I'm very logical. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, it's always a challenge to stay in my heart and talk
Yeah.
from that place, and not be so analytical. Um, and I think as a society, that's what we struggle with. Is especially we get so many stimulations
Mm-hmm.
and the social media and the media, and then the history, and everybody has their own version of history, and when we're trying to constantly battle that, uh, and there's cultural differences, and
Mm-hmm.
so we're
Black men are
constantly,
really taught not to
yeah,
come from the
we're just
heart, or you
exactly,
show that heart because
exactly.
it's vulnerable and can get
Well,
attacked.
also it's a yeah, it's a sense of survival, and I feel like
Mm-hmm.
certain levels of staying quiet, I feel like it's bred in us because if you show any kind of emotion, you know, if you're too happy, you're uppity. If you're too
Mm-hmm.
like angry, then you're dangerous. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
so I feel like as a black male, you only have two ways of being, is safe or dangerous, and it's like
Right.
those are our two emotions that we get to show.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a
And don't be
sense
too safe. Don't
exactly,
be
yeah,
too
exactly. Don't
dangerous.
be too
Right. Yeah.
safety, don't be too exactly. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
so in some ways it's almost like you're not you don't get to have the whole range of human emotions where you can't show them at least,
Mm-hmm.
even though you still have them. And I I think last year also led to that where it's like I had so many emotions where I'm watching the business I invested $10,000 in failing and I didn't have the skills to save it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there was like anger and all this and hurt um, and then the social structure fell apart and it was like all these things are hitting me, but I'm feeling like I can't show this. So I'm trying to go onto the mic. I'm trying to talk to people. It's like, but it's hard to show those emotions because there's a survival mechanism that
Mm-hmm.
I've learned over time, where it's like you need to still face. You know, it's like you can't show none of that. So it was very difficult to come out of that time and uh, kind of come to a place where it's like, all right, fuck it.
Yeah.
Like this is it. This is I'm not, you know, it's like this is just what it's gonna be. So
Yeah. So shame is something that can keep us so locked up and
mm,
keep us in the same space and not moving forward.
mm.
What was there a lightning bolt moment where you're like, "Fuck this shame! This is
Yeah,
who I am, and I want to share it, and I want to truly heal by expressing it."
yeah, it was I think shame and fear I feel like are very complicated because it's like there's so many levels to it. Like there's shame of sexuality. Like if you've been sexually abused, like myself, is like there's shame in that. There's shame of exploring your sexuality. There's shame of of being a sexual being. There's shame of not being successful with women. There's shame of
Mm,
it's like the shame of not living up to that standard of the ultimate black male that's born to be a sexual whatever, and you're not. You're human. Like
right.
you can be horrible in bed. You know, you can be average. It's all ranges, and 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 I think there's shame of being not successful enough at a later age. Like
Hmm.
the shame of still having roommates. It's like there's all these different levels of shame um, that you really have to identify for yourself. Because and that's where it's like no, your family, your friends, nobody can really get in there and tell you the murky stuff. Like you have to flush that out, and that can only be done through like a combination of things. You know, it's like you can meet with your friends, but you also need to not need, but you also can find impartial people that don't
Right.
have an invested stake in you being a certain version of yourself.
Right.
You can just be you and talk from a place of trying to understand yourself better. I think that's huge. That's the crux of things, is to explore yourself without the guilt, without the blaming,
Hmm.
blaming yourself or blaming the people that you grew up around or blaming your parents. It's like, it's not about blame, it's about exploration, and figuring out why you behave how you behave. Uh, and, and, and I feel like that's when you go beyond the shame. That's when you go beyond the fear. Because like for me, I don't live in fear, but I do feel it. Like I've had my moments. Like last year, I was full of the fear of judgment, the fear of, if you, as a black male, if you're perceived guilty, then you're guilty.
Hmm.
And that's something that I wasn't aware of how ingrained that was in me from an early state. I used to get kicked out of stores because I looked like I was stealing something. And that
Hmm.
happened time and time again. It's like I wasn't aware of how ingrained that was in me, to stand at a grocery store and make sure the camera sees me at all times, staying like about 4 feet away from the shelves so I don't
Hmm.
look like, I still do that as a 37-year-old dude. Is like, and knowing that the store clerk doesn't care, like
Right.
that, but I still behave in that way. It's like, so you're not even, uh, there's that awareness of how you're programmed, that comes out as you're able to talk and have different, have different conversations with a range of people. And that's where I feel like with mental health, it's not about one thing. Like, it's not about therapy. It's not about a psychiatrist. It's not about that core group. It's about, they call it a cocktail.
Right.
It's a combination of, and I feel like that's where community comes in,
Right.
where you have that group, you have the group that pushes you to be better, with your talents. You have that therapist that you can sit down with and just be impartial, and then just talk raw with everything that you're going through or that you've been through, in a way that moves you forward, to not just relive things and shoot the shit, but actually like, okay, let me analyze that. Okay, this is how we move forward with that.
Hmm.
A psychiatrist and all this stuff is a trial and error.
Right.
Like I'm a facilitator, and I hear time and time again where it's like it took somebody 5 years to find the right therapist or to find the right psychiatrist. It took somebody 10 years to get in a happy place with their mixture of coping skills. So
Hmm.
it's like it's a process that takes year in, year out of trial and error. And I think that's becomes the your your own recipe. Uh, I mean, it sounds like somebody snoring. You
It's
got
the
somebody,
dog.
you got
Dog
somebody sleep.
growling at the other dog.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. I'm like,
I was
shut
like,
up.
hey, testing, somebody snoring. We got a snore over
we were
here.
we were not excited to
Yeah.
people.
Hey, it sounded like my dog for a minute. I was like, is Wiley snoring, or how is he?
You know.
Man,
Yeah,
how
one
was
dog didn't want the other dog to join us. It's
it?
like back up.
Dogs be beefing, man. They be
Yeah, some
beefing.
doggy war is
It's
going
like,
on.
this is my territory right here.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm by his feet. You not over here.
He's getting old
Hey,
and surly.
yeah, yeah. They fighting for feet position, man.
Exactly.
Hey,
Uh, but yeah, well, before his growling interrupted us,
mm,
that was an important part of it, is to really commit to it and take your time and find all the pieces that work. It's the right,
mm,
if it's medication you need, it's the right medication, because there's a lot of
mm,
different ones that are supposed to attack the same thing, but one's
mm.
gonna suit you the most.
Yeah.
If it's a therapist, it's not just what type of therapy they do, but just that relationship you have with
Mm,
that person.
mm,
And yeah, it's not my job. My view is not that I'm here to heal who
mm,
I come in contact with as a therapist. It's reminding them of all the ways they heal themselves. They've done it in the past, and all
right.
the opportunities they have to find healing in their life. Because
Mm,
that 1 hour a week or 2 hours a week is minuscule piece of their life. Is really
mm,
about identifying all the things out there in the 99% of the rest of their life that's going to
Exactly.
support them and keep them growing in the ways they want to grow.
hmm and I feel like that's a good point. Um, as you're exploring what you need, it's like, especially during this quarantine, it's like, um, I know when I fall off, like when Ahmaud Arbery was murdered, it's like that was my
Hmm.
most severe episode since this quarantine. And I remember I went to a place where it's this whenever I see a black man murder, it sparks up my PTSD. Like that's when I started hearing the like I've heard men scream as bullets penetrated their body. It's like
Mm.
so when I see something like that, and then we have the overstimulation of you see it nonstop, and
Right.
that's where I have to take time away from social media, take time away from regular, the general media, and I have to write, and that's my
Hmm.
coping skill is to take that pen and just let that thing go, and whatever happens, I can. That's where I can explore all my range of emotions, and really uh, work out. And sometimes poetic, sometimes funny, sometimes it's weird. And it's like with that
Hmm.
pen, you go, you just let it go. It's a free write.
Right.
And that's one of the things I've really learned over the years, especially with the negative, when you get into that negative place, is I mean, one of the most powerful moments where I was there. I was having a severe episode, and the negative thoughts was just there. You ain't shit. You worthless. You blah 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 blah.
Hmm.
And I put it on paper, and then I looked at it, and I was like, this is what I'm saying to myself. Like
Hmm.
what? Like this is
Hmm.
wacky as shit. It's like you took.
Hmm.
I feel like I took the power away when I put it on paper. So
Right.
when it hides in your subconscious, that's when it has the most power.
Right. Shine a
So
light.
exactly, that's what it was. Like I put it on paper, and I could see, and I shine a light on it. And so for me, writing has always been, even though I got bad grammar and spelling, it's like it's not about
Doesn't matter.
that,
You're writing
right?
for
Right.
yourself. Right.
My
Yeah.
English teacher ain't there.
Exactly.
So yeah, man. But like that's where also I feel like I had a epiphany, like watching Ahmaud Arbery. It kind of made me think of that over the stress hormones, like kind of rapidly
Hmm.
releasing,
Hmm.
and that kind of affects your cognitive ability. And so when I had that episode, I could feel the cognitive ability kind of going. And as I'm writing, I could feel that kind of get it out while it's there, um, and 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 then that numbness sets in, and
Hmm.
then I can't really talk to my roommates anymore, and they can feel the shift,
Right.
and that's where I can be deathly silent. I unfortunately got to a place where I could be like, "Hey, yo, I'm having an episode," and they can be like, "Ah,
Hmm.
we got you, dog. We
Right.
don't even worry about it, man." But sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just they can just feel like, oh, the things have shifted.
Hmm.
He's not doing too, give him his space, um, and then that you're not functioning how you usually function. So there's an embarrassment in that where it's like you withdraw further from the group you're a part of until it passes. And that's
Hmm.
something I've done well, where it's like I'll disappear for 2 or 3 days because I've mastered how to get out of my own episodes, but it's still you don't want to be around people because you can't function. Like my intellect isn't there, so I can't really talk well. I can't really be in conversations. Like I'm not present, so I'd
Hmm.
rather just withdraw.
Yeah.
And that was also one of those kind of patterns that I noticed throughout my life, where it's like before I knew what it was, I would withdraw. It
Hmm.
was just something I did. I didn't know that's what I was doing, but I would just do it, and that's why.
Right. So you were coping, but now
Exactly.
being able
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
name it and own it and acknowledge
hmm
the whole process goes smoother. It doesn't, you're
Exactly.
not questioning yourself and putting
Yeah.
yourself into a different kind of spiral because
And I
you're
and I
judging what you're doing.
and I feel like that's where the self hatred comes, where when you don't understand why you're behaving how you behaving, so you don't have compassion for yourself.
Hmm.
You just think you're not functioning, and and something's wrong with you. You're broken. So it's
Yeah.
like so when you start reaffirming that, oh, I'm broken, you start. That's when you can go from withdrawing for 3 days to withdrawing for 2 weeks,
Right.
from 2 weeks to a month, because you're broken. So
Right.
when you start telling yourself that, it's you see it as a permanent thing rather than something that just passes.
Right.
And that's where like being in like really studying yourself and your behavior. Um, it's kind of like you don't control when you change, or when the subtle shifts happen. It's kind of like you watering a plant, and at some point it's going to bloom if you keep watering it.
Hmm.
So it's like the little shifts that you have in thinking. You may still, like, I still have episodes, but they're nowhere as severe as they used to be.
Yeah.
And I have such rich resources. It's I have them all at my disposal, and I'm also invested in other people and what they go through on a weekly basis, that it keeps me grounded. Like it's hard to isolate when you're so invested in other people,
Hmm.
and you can use your experiences to get other people unstuck. It's like that becomes and that's also what strengthens a community. It's like
Right.
I know my experiences are going to be wealth for somebody else. And I feel like that's one of the things that uh, I still draw from watching my mother, where it's like she told me all the dirt.
Hmm.
She was real with me, so it's like that's what makes me real. It's like she told me, all the shit that she did, the drugs. So I never felt like drugs were taboo. It was
Hmm.
like, so I never really got into drugs like that. It was like that's what we do as parents, or as older adults talking to kids, where it's like the more we share our weaknesses, the more they don't feel weird, or they don't feel like they're an oddity. It's like, no, man, you're human. You got to we figuring this shit out. Still don't know what the hell I'm doing. It's like
Right.
that provides that release for them. Like, oh, whew, man, I thought I was just weirded out. It's like no, man, do your thing. Let's
Cre-
talk about it.
Create a lane, and
It's,
so whether it's
yeah.
for kids or for the community, a lane that someone else can walk on, because
Mhm.
we're making that okay. And I think
Mhm.
that's just starting to really happen in a real way,
Mhm.
for Black men in particular. Like,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
really be able to say, I'm here, this is what I'm dealing with,
Mhm. Mhm.
and these are ways that I've gotten help to do that.
Exactly. Exactly.
And yeah, it's kind of new. And in this moment, you brought up Ahmaud Arbery, and I think of Breonna Taylor,
Mhm.
and that all happening in the midst of this pandemic, and
Mhm.
just this added layer of dealing with this worldwide thing that we thought maybe in the back of our minds we get a break from that part.
Mhm.
No one's getting shot and no one's going outside, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
I know these
Yeah.
things happened before that, but to have those things kind of jump into our consciousness in the midst of
Mhm.
everything else we're dealing with, I know a lot of folks felt overwhelmed by that,
Mhm.
and so it's just a layer of being a Black man in society is express not expressing more, having more occur,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
having a smaller lane to be able to express what we're feeling about it.
And that's where I've had to really plug into organizations, because like for me, in the past I would kind of go zany, like because I would think about the history, think about how the civil rights ended, think about the William F. Buckleys of the world, who just like master craftsmen of fragmenting people, and it kind of drove me down that path of also of isolation.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, all right, nobody's gonna understand the depth of this, the 1600s to now, Jim Crow, and it's like nobody's, and you also don't want to have those conversations every day, it's also mind numbing, where it's
Mm-hmm.
like you can talk about it for 5 hours and then what you do with it.
Right.
So it's like, so for me, as I got older, it's like, all right, there's prison reform organizations. All right, let me put energy into that, but I can do it in a way that's healthy for me,
Mm-hmm.
or where I don't go zany and I don't go militant black dude, like reading half of Malcolm X, half the book where he's still militant and
Just the
not.
first half.
Yeah, yeah. It's like every black dude has been through that phase where it's like they just read half the book and it's like, yeah, white people
Hmm.
this. It's like, no, finish the book, man. He had way more revelations than that.
Hmm.
Like go to Mecca with him. It's like, read the book. And that's where it's like, even watching Ahmaud Arbery, it's like I can see the 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 totality of it. It's like this is a American thing, just like with how the Asian group is getting the ignorance
Hmm.
from that side. It's like we fight ignorance. But if we start keep saying focus on white, it's like we lose we lose people. It's like the fight is against the ignorance, and then
Right.
that's where it's like it's colorblind, because even in our own community, we fight against ignorance.
Hmm.
And it's like you can get a psychiatrist and still be a devout Christian.
Yes.
You can get therapy and not be against God. It's like so it's
You can
like
get therapy and be strong.
exactly.
It's,
So it's
yeah,
like there
and whole.
yeah, it's like so if you focus on the ignorance, then it's colorblind.
Hmm.
Yeah, I have cultural specific challenges and things that I want to see achieved, but also there's a whole that we also have to focus on and work on as well. It's like there's a micro and a macro to it all, and that's where it's helpful as I get older to have organizations that I can give energy to that already have a kind of mechanism that I can like, okay, you guys, I like what you guys are doing. Let
Hmm.
me let me focus, get some focus there. Oh, I like what Project Angel Food is doing with feeding people that are fighting health conditions. Let me get some energy there. It's like without me um, overextending myself.
Right. It's creating containers for
Exactly.
these things so that
Exactly.
there's a start and an end point
Hmm.
to the feeling. So it's not just always running with
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
and it's empowerment because you're
Hmm.
doing something in the direction to heal those situations.
Because I feel like as a whole is like it's easy for us to ride on emotions, and if we're doing that, then yeah, it's like we get amped up, we get that feeling of we got to do something, we got to do something. But while that's happening, it's like there's a bigger kind of structure being formed, like we're not working on policy while we're stuck in our emotions.
Hmm.
It's like we're not on the ground level in seeing who these city council members are that are really affecting our everyday life, or in our city, in our community. And it's like those are the things that we don't focus on, because that's the everyday, that's the boring, that's the monotonous.
Hmm.
But it's easy to ride emotions. Like, oh
Right.
shit, did you see that? It's like, and then we go off and running.
Hmm.
But the whole time somebody's getting elected that actually affects us, and it's like we we invest on the people around us. That's the ripple effect. And it's like, and I feel like that's where kind of taking a step back is important, and not being so caught up in the sense of like sensationalism of seeing that. It's like, um, and that gets into the whole media thing, um,
Yeah,
but
even sticking with just the emotions, having a container to process that. So,
yes.
I've only had the men's group a couple of weeks, but just having that space, it takes a little pride and
Mm.
everything comes out. The first week maybe it was about a mod heartbreak, but then,
Yeah.
more about just how we're
Man,
dealing with
rap,
this
man,
moment.
I was, oh, man, yeah.
Yeah, and how it's hard to connect with my white friends about this, or how it's
Yeah,
hard to
yeah.
connect with a spouse that might not understand it the way I understand it,
Hmm.
and just having that space to like, whew, finally, I'm gonna let it out.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
And if this person has something to say about it, cool,
Hey,
because we're
me
in
too,
this
man.
contained space, or even
Uh-huh,
if it's different, that
uh-huh.
contained space where, yeah, we're gonna let it all out, and everybody knows we're gonna let it all out.
Yeah,
That's kind of the beauty of group therapy is you just go in that
yeah.
space and you can let go of the things that you might be holding or saying
Yes.
half of in other spaces.
Mm,
And here we can just let it go. And it's been, my
oh,
last session, it was which was an hour ago,
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't say anything the last 35 minutes.
You just
You
let them
know,
go. Hey,
they
have at it, fellas.
they had questions for each other. Their questions were better than the ones I was going to come up with. So
Uh-huh.
let's
Uh-huh.
let the conversation flow. And there was so much built up in us
Yeah,
because there's so
yeah.
many times where we are holding our tongue, or in a workplace or with
Mm,
a certain friend group that maybe we don't feel like can understand what we're talking about. And
mm,
so creating those spaces, and maybe one space is my comedy space, and I'm not going to
mm.
talk to my family the same way I'm going to talk to my comedy space. And
Exactly, exactly.
and finding those tribes, so
Yeah.
really is important.
Well, I feel like that's an experience that I can keep with me now. Like when I first started talking about mental health, it was very messy, and it still is. I'm still learning it as I go, learning on the fly.
Hmm.
But I can start feeling a sense of, oh, I get, okay, this is where I'm kind of going with this. This is what I'm learning. This is who you talk to about this. This is who you don't talk to about. It's like
Right.
I'm kind of learning how to decipher, because before I was, talk to everybody about it, like they're all intimate friends of mine, and it's like you also give people, um, you don't, how you say this, um, everybody has their own, like in their own reasons, their own, uh, I forgot, I don't know how to say this, but it's like,
Their own way of seeing it, the same
well,
picture.
their own way of seeing it, but it's like you can't treat everybody's not about you. It's
Mm-hmm.
life. It's
Hmm.
like you only have a few people that's really about you.
Hmm.
So if you're talking to everybody, it's more of like, ooh, I can use this shit. It's
Right.
like it's you have a general idea of, all right, this is what I'm gonna talk about mental health. This is the impact I want to make as a whole, but to keep myself whole, I can't talk to people like they're all in my close circle.
Right.
Um, and that's kind of the maturation of talking about mental health, where it's like there's a difference. Like there's a like you said, group. I love the group meetings, man. Like the peer support group. Like I've been there every Tuesday for 2 months or 2 years now, and
Hmm.
it's like and to have that group where they get it right off the bat, and that group is colorblind. Like it's about mental health,
Hmm.
so it's like first and foremost. So it's like everybody in that group, they get what the hell you talking about. They get how hard it is to find a psychiatrist. They get how hard it is to find a therapist. They get what it is to really study yourself. If I reference the DSW-5 and talked about mental retardation, like there's somebody else in there that's going to get that. It's like the CBT, the RAP program, where you learn. It's like to be in a group where you're understood is so important.
Hmm.
And that's whatever you struggle with, where it's sex addiction, where it's drug addiction, where it's alcohol addiction, is like to find a group that can help you with your sticking points is like it's huge. It's just like you said, like in your group that was an hour ago, it's like you let them go because they they understood each other,
Right.
and that's the beauty of finding a group. I remember I grew up around my mom's friends, like they had a women's group, and it's like where they could talk about all their struggles raising kids, and the man around is like they had that support group, and that's where I feel like it goes back to the community. Like find where you need support, analyze that, figure out, identify where you need support, and then seek that out.
Hmm.
Um, like even during this quarantine, like if I didn't have, I have a support group pretty much with working out. Like if I didn't have those ladies, like I would not be working out for
Hmm.
shit. Like
Hmm.
easily, I would have 35 pounds on my stomach, just on my stomach. Another,
I feel you. I feel you. I won't say what has been added on this one.
yeah,
and,
yeah, man,
and
easily.
then the other part of that joining the group is you get support, but you
Mm-hmm.
realize how much support you have to give. You realize how
Mm-hmm.
much power your voice means to someone else,
Mm-hmm.
or your experiences can give insight to someone else. So
Mm-hmm.
you know engaging and being a part. of your group, and sharing what you have to do is scary. And then when you do it, the rewards are so strong.
Yes, yes,
Even the
exactly.
rewards of getting people that reject you or don't understand you. Now you have that real information about who they are,
Yeah, yeah,
and you can move on to that circle that you need.
exactly. And I think that's part of the process is when you find that support group, you don't need to put everything, it's like
Mm-hmm.
you don't
Take
need
your
to
time.
overextend. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I checked that box. Like
Mm-hmm.
they get me in this area. So now let me find my basketball friend, find
Right.
people to hoop with. It's like so it is a sense of that combination of different resources that make you whole.
Mm-hmm.
Um, even the yoga, it's like whatever you need to make you whole, you research that and you do your own homework.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we got a few more minutes, and I wanted to kind of ask about your craft. I got a couple of DM questions about comedians and kind of that stereotype of, comedians are all people dealing with mental health issues in
Mm,
some kind of way.
mm.
Has that been your experience? Do you think that's overblown? And why do you think that might be if it is the case?
I believe it's one thing I wanted to a dream of mine is to have um, a wellness clinic or some kind of some focus where it's focused on entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a like to have some place dedicated for entertainers because we push ourselves to the point of insanity to some levels, um, you know, and we won't. Sometimes we will spend everything, every dime we have in our pocket. We'll drive and when we haven't taken care of ourselves. We'll
Mm-hmm.
take our traumas to audition to audition, and we'll think the classes are the reason. I just need the next class, and then I'll do it. It's like there's a
Mm-hmm.
level of addiction that's never addressed to passion. It's like there's passion and then there's addiction. And it's like if you fall into passion, then you're also going hiking, you're also enjoying your friends, you're also taking care of yourself. Um, but if you fall in the addiction of the pursuit, then you're not eating, you're up at 3 a.m., you're drinking, it's like you're chasing the horse, you're chasing it, and you're not comfortable with yourself, you're not happy with
Mm-hmm.
yourself. Um, and I think that's something that artists are easily fall into that trap. So to answer your question, I do believe there's a level of mental health challenges in comedy because we it's easy to get jaded when we're constantly deconstructing reality
Right.
and kind of rewriting it into a humorous way. Like there's a cost to that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a cost to always seeing the other side of things. Like it takes you out of being in the present if you're always examining the present.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like there's a price you pay for doing that. So I do think there's always that challenge of okay, this is my space, not to fucking think about stand up.
Right.
This is where I'm going to be present.
Just live it and not
Yeah,
examine it. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. Like I
Mm-hmm.
hear so many people like they date just to get material. It's like, no, man, date to find the one you want to be with.
Somebody, you know what I'm saying?
Find
Yeah.
who you want. This ain't about material. Find who you want to be with.
Right.
And that's where it's like um, one of my favorite acting teachers. He's like most artists or entertainers. They get stuck into that place of postponing life, and it's like, oh, when I make it, then I'm gonna live.
Mm-hmm.
When I
Mm-hmm.
make it, then I'm gonna have a family. It's like, no, man, you gotta work. Those are simultaneous. Like you're finding that partner as you're working on your career. It's like because if you get your career off the ground, you've never worked on finding a partner. Now you're gonna be on that mountaintop alone,
Right.
like looking out on that scene. Like, ain't that pretty, self? Yourself,
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, man, it is pretty. It's like you don't
Mm-hmm.
want to be up there by yourself. So it is a sense of and I still fall into that trap where I never feel like I'm enough. I never feel like I've arrived. So therefore, I'm not ready to find that partner, you know.
Hmm.
So I still fall in that trap, even though logically I know that now, but it's still hard to get into my heart. Like you need to address this and keep addressing it. It's not just 1 month and then take your foot off the gas.
Hmm. And then when you find the partner, it's, oh, I'm
Yeah,
not enough. One thing, you'll be like, I'm not
exactly,
enough for them. And yeah,
exactly,
it's a
exactly.
constant thing.
hmm hmm Exactly. So, and that's something I'm gonna be working on for, it's like that's not gonna change. And then that's where I feel like when you talk about mental health, it's not about putting yourself on a pulpit or saying this is the things I know. It's like it's not about any of that. It's like no, I'm in that nitty gritty with you
Right.
every day. Like if I go to
That's what,
Ralph's, yeah, if I go to Ralph's, I know I'm buying the pickled chips. I know I'm buying ice cream.
yeah.
I know I'm
Yeah.
buying beer. And if I go to Trader Joe's, like I know I'm buying salad. I know I'm buying kefir, more healthy stuff. It's like
Mhm.
that's knowing myself and sharing that. And it's like, oh shit, somebody else might be able to relate to that.
Right.
So,
If
but
you
it's
if you're acting like, oh, I made it, I'm up here
yeah,
and I'm
yeah,
done,
exactly.
people won't feel like they can get there.
hmm
But
hmm
they feel like you're climbing the mountain. You're like, oh, you can climb this mountain too.
Every day, every
Hmm.
day.
And I'm
Hey,
like, oh, I can start climbing for sure.
yeah, yeah. Like
Yeah, you know.
just yesterday, I took a tequila shot. Like I wasn't supposed to have a tequila shot. What am I celebrating? Every day, it's a struggle.
Yeah.
We take our hits and we keep going. Uh-oh.
Do you do you miss? I feel like people that are live performers, like musicians and comedians, they get that like that fix, kind of
hmm
being on a stage and getting that feel, and that's not an option right now.
hmm hmm
Uh,
Uh,
how are you dealing with that right now?
I have moments
Hmm.
like because I'm so like I actually this quarantine like I've been just as busy as ever
Hmm.
with the different organizations and I've challenged myself to learn how to edit.
Hmm.
So it's like and to try to come up. My mind's always creating. Like there's I can barely keep up with it. So for me, it's the challenge of keeping up with the ideas and getting it processed, writing it, shooting it, editing it. Is like I have my hands full, and then I got this wild ass dog that's full of energy. I
I
always
love
want to,
seeing those.
yeah, I always
Yeah.
want to do some shit. I'm like, hey man, come on, man. We just went on the walk, man. Now you want to play catch? And he never brings the tennis ball back. So it's like, how are we even playing catch? Like you
You
keep
need a
taking
whole
the tennis
bucket of
balls.
balls to throw. Yeah.
Yeah, you got like 5 tennis balls. Like bring them back. So it's like my hands have been full. But I have moments of that moment where an audience connects with you and 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 you could feel them like it's almost like you guys get in tune with each other and in a weird way it's like you kind of breathing the same. It's like they are
Hmm.
they are
It's
hanging
this
on every
rhythm.
yeah, it's a rhythm and they're hanging on every word and your words almost become your words are musical and that's why I always say like I paint with words because that's how it becomes where it's like it's a musicality and they're vibing they're feeling it and every joke it hits. Some jokes don't and you make that into a joke and then there's a craftsmanship
Right.
that goes into it
Hmm.
where it's like that shit didn't work. Let's keep
Yeah.
it
Right.
moving. It's like so I do miss those moments, but it's all like also have stage fright. So it's like I'm a duality. I'm a contradiction of that. So it's like
Hmm.
so the introvert in me, the person that wants to live in the cabin with my dog and a super freak is like that's me
Loving the
too.
moment. Huh?
Yeah, yeah, that's me
Yeah.
too. It's like I wanna be away and just have a simple life, but there's something that calls me to create as well. So I'm always in that duality, that tug of war that wants to be left alone into myself. And it's like, no, man, well, if you're an entertainer, you need attention to do. You have to keep putting yourself out there. So I'm always like going back and forth.
Balancing that.
That's it.
So we're in our last 26 seconds.
Oh shoot.
So
Oh wow.
we
Okay.
went quick,
Mm.
man. And yeah,
Well, well,
I
plug
really want
your
to thank you so much, man.
yeah, yeah. Thanks for having
So
me.
AngelusPsychologyGroup.com. You can come check me out there. You get your plug in the last 10 seconds.
Okay. I'm Magic Man. Check me out on Instagram at Magic Man, and then check out my project. I got a lot coming soon. Mental health and comedy.